Hello everyone, I'm very, very excited to be here. I'm Dr. Jenna Stedman. I actually just graduated, so it's my very first time introducing myself as Dr. Stedman, which is so cool. Thank you. So I am your performance dietitian, and I'm hoping today to put a slightly new spin, open up some new perspectives on what nutrition can really do for the female warfighters. Next slide, please. So optimal neurocognitive performance is absolutely essential during deployment. I don't think we really need any argument to that point at all. I've worked for 2 different states, H2F programs over the past few years, first starting out in Indiana and most recently in Massachusetts. In both of those positions, there was a very clear gap that I had observed in this time, using nutrition as a tool. And I'm hoping that we can open up some more discussions about what we can be using nutrition for moving forward. So the H2F nutrition that we've kind of pieced together so far, or at least started off with, is nutrition has been used primarily as a weight loss tool. And I see this specifically in women, right? Anytime there is a height weight failure, any body composition issues, they're sent immediately to nutrition without any other talk about, well, what else can we be doing here to support this warfighter and what they're trying to accomplish. I'm seeing nutrition used, yes, as a performance tool. Absolutely, we do a lot of great things with improving things like ACFT scores and reducing risks of injuries and things like that. However, again, if you look through our H2F manual, there's very few female-specific recommendations. And then if you look at Chapter 8, which is our very best one, that is the nutrition section, there's just maybe a couple pieces that are female-specific. So I think it's been kind of a great starting point, but we can do so much better moving forward. Next slide, please. I got a little bit ahead of myself here. So the H2F manual, which I think everyone's pretty familiar with right now, right, does lack specific female nutrition guidelines. There are certainly some in there in terms of calorie usage and things like that, but in terms of micronutrients and how we might be adjusting different nutrition patterns depending on what type of training or what type of missions we are trying to utilize nutrition strategy for, the manual really hasn't quite gotten there yet. Most interesting to me, though, are cognitive nutrition guidelines. There are none in the manual. So I think this is a great place for us to kind of take another step forward into what nutrition can do for the warfighter, is take a look at our cognitive performance and not just our physical performance. Both are very important, but I think cognitive performance is going to be a very cool place in the future. And then, of course, right, nutrition strategy is absolutely much more than weight loss, right? I think everyone here has used nutrition at some point in their lives to accomplish something more than losing 5 pounds. Yes? Hopefully. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you 3 nutrients that I think are going to hopefully have kind of our biggest impact going forward for everyone, but also these are 3 that we do actually have good evidence for to kind of start with at least. So everyone's familiar with caffeine. This is a great one. Alertness, reaction time, vigilance does great things for us, right? When used appropriately, okay? We want to be, of course, cautious and careful in consideration of the dose and timing of this, right? We don't want to just load up on caffeine all the livelong day. We want to be using appropriate doses for what we are using that caffeine for, right? So I've seen, we have some very cool studies looking at alertness in missions that are going on overnight, right? We also have some very cool studies looking at like weapons qualifications, things like that. So accuracy as well, which is also very interesting. We want to, of course, be aware of things like sleep timing and personal sensitivity to caffeine. So, right, so again, we can't make a generalization saying everyone must use caffeine in this specific way, but it is certainly one that we have some good evidence for, and we know that it can be kind of a relatively-ish safe one to kind of play around with. There is possible sex hormones that are affecting the effectiveness of the dose of caffeine. So that is something that I'm hoping to see more great research coming out in female, maybe even female-specific dosage or female-specific usage of caffeine. As of right now, we just have these very general recommendations to kind of start with. So what I recommend for everyone is to kind of, use yourself as that personal little scientific experiment and figure out kind of what is going to work best for you for caffeine. Next slide, please. So this is one that we know pretty well, our omega-3 fatty acids. These are our long-term brain health supporters, okay? Most interesting to me, I've been reading a lot about the resiliency in TBIs. So if you or your unit, you are at a higher risk for TBIs, making sure that as best you can, without creating stress around this, increasing our omega-3 fatty acid intake as best you can may create some improved resilience to TBIs, which I'm hoping is important to everyone. Interesting thing here, men or women, we do not have an actual recommendation for a daily omega-3 intake. So I'm hoping to see in the future, we will figure that one out. The best recommendation that we have right now, just in practice, is consuming fish 2 to 3 times a week. That's as best we have so far. So for anyone interested in supplementing, or if we're maybe in a place that doesn't have fresh, wonderful fish for us to eat every single day, supplementation may be kind of our solution there. However, we don't have a specific dose that's really recommended to say, if you take this much, we definitely see these improvements or whatever it may be. So again, further research is needed there. I'm also hoping to see some more female-specific data there as well, because we do know the male and female brains do work a little bit differently, and I say that in the nicest way possible, of course, but it's very, very possible that different omega-3 doses may be appropriate to either gender. Next slide, please. All right, our total caloric intake. So this is actually the one that you could start thinking about today, starting tomorrow. This is a really easy one to kind of jump off with. Our energy availability, somewhere in the 30 to 45 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass. That is our general recommendation for overall health for females. So this is one that we do actually have good female data for, which is fantastic. However, that data that we're basing this off of is, again, based on our physical performance and our physical well-being, which is a wonderful start, but I would love to see us kind of close the gap in that cognitive and brain health again, There is, I don't think I could think of a time where someone is not going to be using their brain. So in the interest of, good brain health and good decision making and alertness, we want to make sure we are, again, fueling our brain for the type of work that we are doing. We do know, and this is again both male and female, the brain does need a constant supply of glucose for best function. So our best practice that we can go off of here is taking that 30 to 45-ish, somewhere in that range, calories per kilogram fat-free mass, spreading that out over the day as best you can, We're not just eating one big meal and we're good to go for the day. We're trying to get that over 3 or 4 balanced meals as best we can. And I say this kind of with an asterisk at the end too, because I know, and this is who I work with primarily, is when you're on longer missions, you're in the field, you do not always have access to a beautiful home-cooked balanced meal every single day. So again, we don't want to create stress over trying to make the best nutrition decision every single day, every meal, every snack, but keeping these 3 things in mind, these are the ones that we kind of have the best evidence for going forward. Next slide, please. All right, so this is my very last one. So I have some recommendations for us, How can we improve in our utilization of nutrition moving forward? Our leaders and healthcare practitioners, anyone working in H2F especially, we need to try to prioritize nutrition care, not just through education with our subject matter experts, but also by policy. I hear all the time the gentle complaints from the soldiers that I've worked with, You get to a new base, you are sent somewhere, wherever you are headed, You do not have access to the nutrition that you require to do your very best job. And that is something that I'm hoping that we are moving forward in policy that is going to help change that as best we can. We also want to, right, hopefully improve our efforts in cognitive nutrition research as best we can, and specifically in females, right, because we know that there's very possible differences there, but we don't have any evidence to prove it yet. So I would love to see those questions answered in the future. For our female service members and anyone leading female service members in their units, keeping these 3 nutrition recommendations in mind as best you can, okay? I never want to create stress and tell anyone you have to eat a certain way. That's definitely not the right answer, but to know that we're thinking about these things and kind of heading in the right direction is always a good step forward. And then, of course, continuing to ask for change. Last slide. It's actually just my email. So I wanted to leave questions for the end. I tried to go pretty quick. I could talk for hours about nutrition. What questions do we have, not just about the 3 nutrients that I talked about today, but anything kind of nutrition-wise? Yeah.
So you talked about omega-3 fatty acids, and I know that the best recommendation that we have is fish 2 to 3 times weekly. Did you consider in your research the effects of mercury on the brain and the content within fish? And I know some fish has higher concentrations of mercury in at least 1 serving than you should probably get in a whole month.
Absolutely. And that's a fantastic question. It is absolutely something that we need to consider, not just mercury, but all of the heavy metals that we find in our fish and seafood. Unfortunately, at this point, it's not really something that we can take out. So certainly what I tell people is, right, do the best you can with what you have, right? There are certain, I think it's the CDC, you can actually find a list of the fish that have, right, lower levels, medium levels, higher levels, and you can make choices based on those. So absolutely trying to limit our heavy metal intake and our mercury intake absolutely plays a role in cognitive health as well. Until we get that excellent recommendation, and that's going to put those omega-3s in a pill that's not going to have any mercury in it for us, that's the best recommendation that we have to go on so far. Yeah, very good question. Anything else? Yeah.
Expect those recommendations in about 2027.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the National Academy is going to re-review.
I can't wait. I can't wait to read it. That's wonderful. Yes.
What's your healthiest suggestion for glucose intake?
Healthiest.
Yeah, like what types of food would you recommend if you were trying to spread it out throughout your day?
So typically with any of our carbohydrate intake, if we're trying to spread that out throughout the day, we want to try to choose our higher fiber choices as best we can. We don't always have access to those all the time, so again, that's why I always say as best as you can. Our higher fiber carbohydrates are going to give us a more sustained energy release throughout the day versus our much lower fiber carbohydrates. Those are going to give us a very quick burst of energy, right? So that's helpful in cases like, right, like you're all doing an excellent morning workout tomorrow, right? A lower fiber carbohydrate pre-workout, pre-exercise is going to be more helpful than something that's going to give you a slow release and it's going to catch up a couple hours later. Great question. Yeah.
First off, I just want to say, if you're working out with us tomorrow morning, please don't come fasted.
Oh, no, don't do that.
Please don't do that. It's
No,
not
no.
about you. Hydrated and fed. But I wanted to ask, because it's kind of, I've found as a coach over the years that there's a lot of controversy surrounding the amount of protein that female tactical athletes should actually be getting, because there's a camp that says, get as much as you can stomach, and others that say, well, your body's just going to process it out or store it as fat. And so from your practice, working closely with soldiers and female tactical athletes, what would you recommend as a dosage daily for protein intake?
That's an awesome question. Okay. So the official recommendation from textbook is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, not by pound, per kilogram. That is just to maintain you as a human being, right? That's not trying to build muscle or support doing hard work or doing other things. So if you really needed the bare minimum, 0.8. For our tactical athlete warfighter population, we have better evidence showing anywhere from like 1.2, right? 1.2 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So again, right, and that's still even a pretty decent range. So, and that's why, right, it's nice to work with a dietitian individually, find what's going to be the best for you. But starting off somewhere in that range most days is usually going to get you pretty close in the ballpark, right? If someone is a little bit more active, they're going to be usually on the higher end of that, and then timing that protein post-workout or post-training as best they can. If you're doing still a decent amount of work, but, your job is on your feet, something like that, somewhere on lower on that scale, 1.2, 3, 4, something like that would be appropriate. Yeah, good question.
And Dr. Stedman's also going to be on the panel
Oh,
with
yeah.
us here, so I'm going to not let you steal any more of the questions. I'm just kidding.
I love you, mean it.